Hello, everybody, and thank you for dropping in to this edition of Walking the Ropes. I'm Caleb.
I am Blake, and today we have an awesome show for you. We'll be reviewing everything that happened on this week's episode of Raw and talking about your Twitch polls from Raw last week, or I guess this week. And what else are we going to be talking about today?
Well, we've got some news. We're going to go over our personal favorite matches, segments, wrestlers
Right.
of the week in that, or of Raw. My apologies there. And yeah, just talk wrestling from the past, I guess, 24, 48 hours or so, anything that's
Yeah.
happened. But before all that, if you guys would like to support our podcast here, you can check out our Buy Me a Coffee and Redbubble pages, which you can find through our link tree, as well as following all of our social media to stay up to date with everything going on with Walking the Ropes. But I guess with that being said, yeah, we'll get right into it here with
Yep.
any kind of news that we've got here. I guess the biggest one to come out of the past 24, 48 hours is the merger of the WWE network with NBC's new Peacock streaming service
Right.
in the US. The standalone network app is being done away with as of March, and their network content will now be exclusively through Peacock, which I
Well,
find interesting.
I think that'll be favorable to WWE in the long run
Oh, without
because
a doubt.
arguably they'll be shown on a larger platform than just specifically something under the WWE banner. Anybody who now goes to that platform sees it.
Exactly. I
So,
mean, you got Peacock, which I mean, you got all these TV shows on there, and I mean, popular stuff like The Office and that, and people are subscribing just to watch that stuff. And so now you've got where WWE Network, the only people subscribing to the network are wrestling fans, are people who want to watch WWE stuff. So they get off really lucky here because I mean Peacock's already got I think a few million like subscribers.
probably, yeah,
So
it's the first I've heard of it. When they were talking about it, I wasn't
it's
100% sure what it was.
it's new out of like the past like 6 months, I think.
So is it like a movie streaming service
It's
or a
it's right similar to like HBO Max, Netflix, stuff like that.
Okay.
For us up here, like the global app where you've got multiple different channels under one banner.
Mhm.
That's basically what this is. They've got some exclusive content and stuff already on it. But apparently it was a $1 billion deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess the value of this deal going around is that it was estimated around $1 billion.
Oh, wow.
Like that's a lot of money. That's a lot of
Yeah.
zeros.
Well, I mean, WWE, when they invest full force, and I think even when they made the network, they put a lot of money into it.
Oh
With
yeah.
the fact that they had pretty much centered WrestleMania around the network release, there
Oh,
was obviously a ton of money put into it.
that year, I mean, that's all you heard. Like you heard it like a million times a show. Like the WWE Network, 9.99. Watch Mania
Yeah.
on it.
Well, even on Mania, they were like, and this match is brought to you by the WWE Network almost every time. Like,
And it's funny, I can remember when the network launched, and I remember 2, 3 years prior when the reports had come out about the network. And I remember sitting there for like it was 2 or 3 years. Yeah, like I'm trying to think. It was 2 or 3 years that I sat there waiting and waiting and waiting because I'm like I would totally, you know, get a network that's just all WWE content or old WCW,
yeah.
ECW, like whatever they own. And I remember nothing, 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 nothing. And then I didn't even watch the press conference live. I found out about it. I don't know. I think I would have still been in elementary school, maybe, when the network came out, or just early high school. But I can remember getting home and going on to like my dirt sheets and that, and just seeing all like the new logo and this and that and the network coming, and I was like, oh, okay.
That was in 2014. It was launched
Okay, so yeah.
February 24th, 2014. Coming up on the anniversary.
Oh wow. So yeah, so early high school. But yeah, it was like wow, okay, they're going full force with this, and I can remember reports being like it's gonna fail, and I'm like they'll be just fine. Like what do they have to lose? Literally, they own all the content. They're not getting content from outside sources. It's all the stuff they own. Like
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, no, it was a great idea making the network, uh,
yeah, I
for
mean,
sure.
I still, even though I don't watch a whole hell of a lot with it, I still have it. I still
I
use it.
presently don't have it, unfortunately. I don't even have a TV provider, so I don't even think I can actually get it.
That's the crappy part about Canada is you've either got a VPN and set all your stuff up and pay the American price, or you have to here in Canada because our deal is through Rogers.
Mhm.
Rogers distributes it to all the TV companies and that, so
Yeah.
it's a TV based, which intrigues me as to when this merger happens for like us. Like we have the TV channel up here, but you can also log into the network website. I'm wondering if that website's gonna remain or if it's going to be merged over and us Canadian users are going to lose access to like the standalone website of it.
But doesn't the platform they're moving to have its own website?
Yes, but the thing is it's a matter of will they have it set up then for only WWE content for those from Canada? Like it's just it's
Well,
I'm afraid it's going to be a mess
I would
basically.
think that the way the service will be set up, it'll have the tagline at the top, like Disney Pluses, if you've ever seen that, where they have Marvel, Star Wars, their Disney stuff, their Pixar stuff, and all that. And I feel like there's going to be whatever channels is in that thing, and WWE's logo is going to be right in that.
More than likely. It's just a matter of the login process if they're still going to allow us to do that or like that's just the biggest thing is all that content available on the website once it merges like that's my thing. Will they still have the standalone network website where it's like log in with your Peacock stuff or is it all going to just end up on the Peacock website and when it does is it gonna screw over? Because I mean, like they updated the app back about 6 to 8 months ago, the WWE app, and
Right.
it locked Canadian users out of using it because when you do it on like when you would do it on the app beforehand or on the website, you sign into your WWE account and then it recognizes your IP is in Canada, and then you have to sign in with your TV provider. Like it's a
Well,
whole different process from the American sign in.
and something interesting, I just tried to go to Peacock's website, and the whole service is unavailable in our region.
Yeah, it's only an American based service.
Yeah.
So
So,
the thing is if it does mess that up here, I'm basically gonna have to cancel through my TV provider and then do the whole VPN bullshit. Subscribe to Peacock, pay the American like
mhm.
it's one of those things where it's like how badly is this going to screw up things. But hopefully it goes well. Hopefully everything works out. I mean, it's a good deal for them. New eyes on the
Mhm.
product. Just don't screw out the people who have supported it thus far, is my only thing.
Yeah, exactly, and well, I mean, I think, even in Canada in general, it's hard to watch wrestling content,
It
so
is.
don't make it harder.
It is. But
Like,
yeah, like that's that that network deal. So what do you got? You got anything there?
honestly, not in particular anything that I found overly interesting over the last little bit. If you have anything
I have a few
by
more
all
here.
means.
I read this morning, Rod McMahon, Vince McMahon's brother, passed away
Oh,
I believe it was last week at the age of 77. Vince was not present for, I believe it was SmackDown. I have not heard whether or not he was present for Raw last night. But best wishes go out to the McMahon family.
that yeah, I did hear about that. I forgot to write that down in my notes.
So yeah, and then the only other thing, a little off topic from the whole WWE wagon since we're discussing Raw, but AEW's Revolution pay-per-view is has not been confirmed. This is only through Dave Meltzer with the Wrestling Observer. It's reportedly being pushed back to March 7th from its original Saturday date of February 27th, I want to say.
I think
Um,
it was that date. Yeah,
Apparently the 27th there is a big boxing pay-per-view. I believe it's a boxing pay-per-view. Somebody's making
I
a
want to say it
return.
was
I'm
that.
not sure. And then the following Saturday the 6th was the next UFC show. And so, I mean, the thing is, I don't blame them one bit. You don't you want to try to minimize the amount of competition when you're airing well, especially it's AEW. They've got 4 pay-per-views. This isn't WWE with 18 pay-per-views in a 12-month calendar year. AEW has 4 pay-per-views. Minimize running with another event that's going to draw a large portion of that similar fan base. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
exactly.
MMA or boxing fans that are also pro wrestling fans and vice
Hmm.
versa. So
As much as they don't like to admit it sometimes.
exactly. People who are like diehard MMA fans but are also pro wrestling fans, 9 times out of 10, as I have family who are that way, will not admit it in an open setting. Behind closed
Yeah,
doors, it's "Did you see Raw?" But in an open setting, it's "Oh, that's that stuff's fake. I watch MMA."
yeah, exactly. And I'll never understand somebody calling wrestling fake. Like it's never fake. Sure, they might help each other through moves, but it's not fake.
Like they're not going in there trying to knock the other one out, trying to get the winner's purse, stuff like that. We understand that. We understand things like punches are pulled and stuff like that. It's general
And
knowledge.
yeah,
But the surface they're still landing on, what they're putting their body through, and then I mean you even bring in stuff like stipulation matches and chair shots. There is no nice way to take a chair shot, whether it's to the head or to the back, even with like the proper like you try and hit the chair over so much surface area of the back. Like there's a way to do it. But as somebody who's taken chair shots like
yeah.
that the proper way, it still hurts.
Yeah, it stings. And I mean, like, it, not to put it lightly, just taking any weapon of any kind in a wrestling match, even going through a table, you can't fake going through a wood table. Sure, the table might break easy. You still went through a wood table.
I mean, that's like going
Like,
to independent shows, and I mean, we've been lucky enough to sit front row at a lot of independent shows.
yeah,
I mean, the thing is those guys like that's even like for stuff like running into the metal poles and that, and like
their head
there's
might not hit it, their hand hits it, but
shoulders, stuff like that. But I mean,
yeah,
stuff happens, and I mean the thing is pro wrestling. It's still very dangerous. One of my favorite stories. It's kind of awful to say it's a favorite story, but going to an independent show back a few years ago, myself, a mutual friend of ours, Mitch, and then
yep,
my ex, we were all going to a show. And we got front row tickets, and during the match, one of the guys was hung up Tree of Woe style right in front of us. We were front row and he was in the corner right in front of us. And the guy dove and basically tried coast to coasting him. It was a tag match. And so like they did like kind of like a double coast to coast type thing. The one guy
right.
caught him in the lip and he ended up it hit his tooth and it split his lip like completely open. And he fell in front of us and was gushing blood and he like put his head up and like spit blood out. And like I remember that being the first time at a pro wrestling show seeing unintentional blood.
Yeah,
because
live.
there had been blading spots which I had seen where they got the little bit of color, but it dried really quick and stuff
Yeah,
like that. But
exactly.
that was like the first time being like, oh shit. And I mean, he was right in front of me. And I mean, as a fan, I was like, oh wow. But as a person, I was like I kind of want to check on him because like he's
Yeah,
fucking draining, man. Like just
exactly.
and then come to
To
find
put it
out
like JR, he's bleeding like a stuffed pig.
he was, and then come to find out that exact wrestler I end up having connections to
Oh,
through friends and that, which is really awesome. But like just I mean, it, yeah, there's a fakeness to pro wrestling if you want to put it that way, but by no means
absolutely.
is the sport of pro wrestling fake.
And yeah, you can point to matches even on Raw's card where there were botches and things that didn't go right. And yeah, you can always point them out and be like, see this, look at this. But yeah, and then I'll point you to a 7-star spectacle and be like, yeah, but look at this.
But I mean, like that's the thing, and I mean, one thing people have been pointing out a lot, and especially with the COVID era of wrestling, basically, is the only way that we can describe this, is we're getting more, in a sense, cinematic and pre-shot and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people are on the fence about it or disliking it. But I mean, we've had stuff like this for years
Hmm.
between all kinds of different promotions. I mean, Impact Wrestling, like even before the Broken Universe and cinematic stuff like that, they would do they would do reshoots in front of a live crowd. They would do heavy edits to their stuff. WWE used to do it to SmackDown when they pre-taped SmackDown. Like we've had stuff like this for years. It's so
Well,
prominent now that people want to make a point of it.
well, I was at an event in Windsor a few years back where we had WWE UK champion Pete Dunne defend at the start of the show. And at the main event, we went live to Impact Wrestling for one match. It was live to Impact Wrestling. The Impact champions came out, or tag team champions came out and defended their titles. And it was such a weird scenario, but in that moment, you just had an interpromotional event, WWE and Impact Wrestling, without even intentionally doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, and I mean, obviously, there was another kind of WWE esque thing. Rey Mysterio was at that event as well.
That was just before his signing, I believe, right? Like he signed
Exactly. So
he well that was in the fall, and I believe the Rumble that January was when he returned
I
because we
think so.
watched the Rumble together and we popped huge when Mysterio came out.
Yeah,
So, I
exactly.
mean, that's
And
just I
it was
mean,
just it was so cool. Like
I
that was
saw
just
Orange.
something.
Oh, sorry,
That
go
was
ahead.
just something I got reminded of, and
Yeah.
it was a perfect example.
I mean, I saw
So
Orange Cassidy 2 weeks before he signed his All Elite Wrestling contract.
yeah,
Like
like
you just happen to, catch the
yeah,
right shows apparently.
these weird things happen all the time in wrestling, and it's just it's a thing that happens.
Yeah, like
Like
if you're a wrestling fan and you have the ability when stuff comes back to normal and that, go to indie shows even if the
yeah,
crowd is a matter of 10 people or something like that. Like go to indie shows. It's worth it cuz you
yeah.
never know who you're going to see or who's going to be the next big thing. I mean, that was
Yeah,
like we have photos with he goes specifically by Blade now with All Elite
yeah,
Wrestling, Butcher and Blade, um Braxton, Pepper Parks, like whatever you want to call him.
yeah.
We saw him at a college event and I mean the crowd was 40 people.
Yeah, exactly.
40
And
people. We met him. We got a photo with him. Super nice guy. And you look a matter of 2.5 years later. I mean, there when they debuted on Dynamite, there were so many people going, "Who the hell are these guys?"
but
But I popped. because I
You and I
knew
were
who they
side by
were.
side, I think, at this because this was Dynamite or Impact's first. Why am I saying Impact? AEW's first show, and we were sitting side by side, I think,
I don't
and we were
know if
like,
was it the Washington show when they debuted? I don't think it was.
it was whenever. Um, when did they debut? God,
Yeah, it wasn't the first show because they debuted and attacked Cody, and Cody was in the opening of the first Dynamite
I
against
think
Sammy. That
you,
was
but
Inner
I still
Circle.
think you and I were
Oh,
were watching together
we more than likely did because you were coming
when
over for Dynamites regularly.
yeah, and when he pulled off his mask right then, we looked at each other and just went, we we saw him like last year. Like
Yeah.
it was
Well,
insane.
I mean,
Like
I had seen Butcher and Blade. I had seen the tag team a matter of 3 months before that debut at an
yeah,
independent show. Um,
exactly.
like it's just you never know. Evil Uno and Stu Grayson of the Dark Order. I mean, they were big independent names up here, like Ontario and Quebec. I mean, Super Smash Brothers is what they were called for those of you who are not aware of what they were doing prior. They
Yeah.
were huge independent stars in Ontario and Quebec. And like that's why when they debuted at I believe that was Double or Nothing, the very first Double or Nothing.
Yeah,
And
that was the team that debuted.
I remember like even going on Twitter and Twitter being like 90% of Twitter being like, who are these guys?
I
Like
didn't
who
personally know who they were, but you had explained it to me to the point where it's like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah,
Like,
but people were like, who are these guys? But I can remember the second they showed up, I popped because I was like, oh my god, like it's another one of those like whenever you see local guys in a sense, and I mean the thing is I say Ontario and Quebec, like that's a lot of promotions, that's a lot of territory to cover,
well, even
but the thing is
Buffalo, a
they're
lot of those guys are from.
oh
Like,
exactly, I mean we had guys like Puff and Daniel Garcia and I believe Kevin Blackwood were on Dark and Dynamite back
and they've
a few
even been
months
on
ago.
Raw. There's been a couple
Raw,
of them on Raw and
SmackDown,
SmackDown.
NX,
Like,
or not NXT, 205, one of them wrestled
yeah,
on. Whenever you see, in a sense, those local guys, when they make their rounds to a company over and over and over again, and you start to know them and you start to talk to
yeah,
them, and you see them succeed big,
yeah,
it's always nice. And even if it's not a contract like, the Dark Order guys or Butcher and Blade got, and it's just an appearance like Kevin
Puff
Blackwood ended
and
up being, I don't remember what the segment was, but it was on SmackDown. There was some kind of like funeral segment or something. And he was like a
yeah,
pallbearer for it or something. But you
but
see them
he
on
was there.
TV and you're like, you're an extra, but you know what? Good for you.
Well, I mean, that's just it. Puff came out. Wasn't that to interrupt Miro's? He was the best man,
When
and
they were introducing the best man and Puff came out, I
yeah,
popped so hard for Puff. Like,
like
you want to
I
talk about a
love
guy in
Puff.
real life who is so nice. I mean, I've seen Puff live probably a dozen times. I've
Well,
stood
not
and
even just
talked with
Puff. We've
him.
seen Santa Puff too.
Santa Puff coming out to Mariah Carey.
That was the best.
He won by that flaky snow shit. He threw it in somebody's eyes and that like it's just
It,
uh
yeah, wrestling is the best thing in the world, and I will argue that to the day I die.
oh
It
yeah.
there's like as much as we might shit on things that happen on Raw or
I don't think
SmackDown or
there's any
whatever.
better form of continuous entertainment in the world. I don't think
Yeah,
there is. It's like watching it in a way because I always make the point when somebody tries to make the comment of like wrestling is fake or something, and I make the comment of, well, you watch a movie, you would watch an action movie, those are all characters. That fighting is even more staged out, like by a lot than wrestling is.
there's hidden wires that get edited out in movies, whereas wrestling, I dare you to say anybody is suspended by a wire besides Shawn Michaels shooting into the ring.
But
Like,
yeah, at
yeah.
WrestleMania 12, right?
I was gonna say that was a Mania, but I couldn't
Yeah.
remember which Mania.
But like it there's no better continuous form of entertainment. I mean,
And you can call it stupid entertainment if you want to, but
TV shows go on breaks, and you've got 6 months between seasons. Movie series, you've got 1, 2, 3 years between one movie to another, and then it's only 3 hours. We
yeah,
have 10 hours a week of, like, sure, not every moment is good, but if you're a fan of pro wrestling, it's still entertainment at its very core.
absolutely. And like, just to there was a point you made and I can't remember what I was going to say with it now. Just literally a second back there. Um
I'm not entirely sure.
but either way, it's just, yeah, wrestling's just amazing.
Like, there's a lot of people out there who like to try to put that divide with AEW coming out and this and that. And it sucks. It sucks because
It really
it
does.
happened during the Monday Night Wars as well. It's totally understandable. You're gonna like one product over the other. It's just stuff like Twitter and that have given basically keyboard warriors the opportunity to if they don't like something, they can fully voice their opinion, even if it's to an empty void of nobody.
Well,
Um,
hell, what are we doing right now? We're voicing our opinions about things to
it,
what
it,
could arguably be nobody, but
exactly.
we appreciate anybody and everybody that wants to listen to us,
Oh, very much
and
so. But
you know,
but the thing is that's why we're doing all the shows we can on here. That's why,
absolutely,
like, there's going to be Raws, I guarantee you there will be a Raw down the line, whether it's this year, 2, 3 years from now, God knows. There is going to be a Raw that I look back on the week of wrestling that was, and I go, you know what? Raw was better than Dynamite.
oh, absolutely.
Or a
It hasn't been
SmackDown,
recently,
or
but
like, it's going to happen. And like, that's the nice part about my interest is I'm a pro wrestling fan. I don't care if it's WWE, Impact, AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor. If it's good quality professional wrestling sports entertainment, because we've discussed it on previous podcasts, you really can't have one without the other in a lot of scenarios.
yeah,
It's a great time to be a pro wrestling fan. I think coming up with us going to be coming out of the COVID era, however long that might take. I mean, we're gonna have fans at Mania again. They're getting fans in at Dynamites. But once we're out of this COVID era of, not quite full arenas and full stadiums and everybody's back on tour and that, it'll be the best time I think ever
yeah.
since the boom of wrestling in the 80s, and that, like, nothing will compare to what we are going to get.
Yeah, and we hate to say that like there's a lot of gimmicks that are currently being held because they work much better in front of a crowd. It's very much true. I almost wonder if that's why WWE is holding off on Aleister Black, because his character seems to work a bit better in front of a live audience. But who knows?
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Aleister Black in
Not since they changed his entrance to where he doesn't even get to come up from the coffin anymore. And there's that weird, or when they had the weird like gear noise in it
Oh,
or whatever.
I hated that. But that was like when Ricochet first debuted on the main roster, and they added all the stupid little effects and took away his cool lights. Because it
Yeah.
had like the really cool like laser lights, and then they just changed it to like the strobe light, and I'm like,
Yeah,
guys.
like the WWE does a lot of things right and they do a lot of things
A
wrong.
lot of things wrong, like, let's be honest. But anyways, if that's
Y-
all the news we got, we
Yeah, I
and
think so.
our banter there, I guess we will move on to the results from last night's Monday Night Raw, January 25th of 2021.
Yep.
um in my opinion, I know we messaged a little bit last night after the show. I found it turned out to be in the later half of the show, decent. Like it wasn't the best, but it's the most tuned in I've been to a Raw, considering the second half. Once again, the first half not so much, second half sure. It's the most tuned in I've been to a Monday Night Raw in probably weeks.
Okay.
Um,
Uh,
but I mean, we can get into that as we go here.
yeah,
So
I wasn't as sold on this episode of Raw, but
well,
I mean,
maybe I
it
can
was.
change your mind.
We'll try, absolutely, but I just maybe there was something I missed that was the reason.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, the thing is that's one of the best parts about us doing this podcast too, is we share a lot of similar opinions, but some things that may work for me, in terms of content, entertainment, wrestling, stuff like that, may not work for you, and vice versa.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could talk about the Matt Hardy gimmick, how initially it didn't work for you and how it's starting to really grow on me a lot right now, and
Yep,
you are not so much. You're warming up to it, but I'm
I'm
like
warming up
full-fledged
to it.
behind to it. I'm full-fledged behind it. I love it. Like,
Yeah. So but yeah, but we'll get into the results here. So we open the show, Drew McIntyre returns from his COVID quarantining, and comes out and starts cutting a promo. Um I'll be honest, I kind of saw from a mile away where the promo was heading right from
I
the
I
get-go.
I enjoyed Miz and Morrison coming out. I immediately assumed Goldberg was just gonna come out.
That was
So,
the nice little throw in there, cuz I expected him
yeah.
to come out, say some stuff like about going in quarantine and then move on to Goldberg. Goldberg come out and it be the segment. So when Miz and Morrison came out, it was a breath of fresh air to what I figured was going to be a very generic stale segment.
Yeah, where we've seen this all the time. "Oh, I'm the champion. I came" like, I think Cena, he tweaked his ankle once, so he was away for 2 or 3 weeks. He came back, he was the champion still, they didn't drop it off him because there was no reason to, he was coming back real quick. He came back, and then Orton just immediately came out, and they just stared down, and was like, "And this Sunday!" Like
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
like, sometimes having that little bit of comedy, it makes the segment last longer, but it gives Miz and Morrison.
Correct.
Yeah, it makes Miz and Morrison look like those jerk heels, and even if they don't end up cashing in, which in my opinion, if they want to take the belt off of Drew this weekend, they want to give it to anybody, give it to Miz, please don't give it to Goldberg.
The only way I am okay, and I said this on I think it was the most recent previous podcast, our weekly review from last week. Um, the only way I'm cool with Goldberg taking it is if the Fiend wins the Rumble and then takes it off of him at Mania. I do not want any bullshit in between. I want them to let the Fiend come back and absolutely bulldoze. I don't care. I know people aren't a complete fan of the character, saying it doesn't work in 2021. I'm sorry, the Undertaker gimmick worked for 30 years through
Yeah.
so many different stages. This Fiend character can work as well. I mean, I absolutely love the concept of the Fiend character, but I mean, I like, and I say this very haphazardly here, I like out there gimmicks that
Yeah.
really kind of like hit you in the face as holy shit, like, because I know a lot of people are like, it's 2021, let's bring reality into pro wrestling or something, but we don't have to. Pro wrestling, sports entertainment, that whole umbrella was built on the backs of stuff like this.
Well,
There's no
exactly.
reason. I'm sorry. We literally in the 80s and 90s had a guy that was a garbage man. We
We
had
had a hockey player,
hockey player. I mean, look at
baseball
Sergeant
player.
Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter was literally just like basically a veteran like type
Yeah,
deal. Like it just
he was the lovable face, like, but everybody kind of booed him, but he played like he was a face, and then to actually turn him heel to get boos,
he turned on
he turned on
America.
America. Like,
Like
it was perfect. Like, it was just simple storytelling that nobody expected, and just it works.
and
Like,
we can have this crazy out there kind of crap. I mean, the Undertaker and then King coming onto the scene. It was his family owned a funeral home and he burned down the funeral home and his brother had died, but here's his brother now. And
Yeah, and I mean, you can say that they were perfect gimmicks. They had points where they did not work.
oh my god,
Kane's
there was freaking holes in those gimmicks. If you go
yeah,
back left, right, and center, there are holes in those gimmicks through the
well, and not
years.
even just holes, just bad things about them in the fact that like Kane's voice talking box thing.
Oh, come on, you
Uh
didn't like that?
right? Or the initial Undertaker's mask that he had, the white it made him look kind of like a demon almost.
Are you talking the half one?
Yeah.
That was when he broke his nose.
Yeah, but it's still just it looked weird
It would have
and
been
it
better just to take him off TV for the 4 or 5 months.
exactly. Exactly. I would have preferred if he it just didn't happen, but they did that to keep him with it. Like
So there,
it
like,
just yeah.
that's the thing with this Fiend character. We've had mistakes made. Cough, cough. Hell in a Cell and Goldberg, but
We're
oh,
not gonna
what, you don't want to discuss either of those? Don't worry, we'll save that for a future flashback podcast.
we're gonna have to do a show called Nuclear Heat. Just that's the show because the button's not gonna be enough. That's gonna be just the whole show.
Pretty well. But honestly, yeah, like the only way I'm cool with Goldberg winning is if we get the Fiend being an absolute monster.
If
Um
we don't get that, I want Miz to cash in on
if
Goldberg. I would
yeah, if they're not going the Fiend route, if Drew is dropping the belt, it is to the Miz.
oh yeah, I want them. And as much as people might say, well, why do you want the Miz to win? Well, part of me is that kid of me. He was one of the guys who was kind of always there, and two, he was a really good jerk heel
He
champion,
was.
especially with Alex Riley. I can only imagine what he'll do with John Morrison.
And I'd rather our champion be there every week.
Yes.
I do
I,
not
well,
like
I,
world champions not
I
being
thought you were
at the
taking a shot
show.
at Drew, but that was the shot at
No,
Goldberg.
no, 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 no. I
Sorry.
Drew, that was not his fault. And he even
No.
still had videos on the two shows he
Yeah,
missed. Um
exactly. But that's what I mean.
but
Like
you've
I
got
thought you were
somebody
taking a
like
shot there.
no, like somebody like Lesnar wins the belt and
Yes.
then we don't see the world title for 4 months. No. No.
Granted, it elevated the US title and the Intercontinental title, but the fact is they kept those on separate shows. So if they had brought, say, the two titles over to Raw while Brock was gone, it would have been fine because yeah, then Raw still had two singles titles to fight over.
That's
But
fair.
it's just they gave the title to Brock and then Brock went, okay, bye.
Yeah.
See ya at SummerSlam. But this is Mania. Yeah, see you at SummerSlam.
Oh wow. But
Like,
anyways, yes. So yeah, as we were saying, Raw opened with the McIntyre promo. Miz and Morrison come out and interrupt and do their whole correct.
correct.
I gotta admit, as much as I roll my eyes every time they do it, it gives me a chuckle. But I mean, that's exactly the heels they're trying to be. It's supposed to be the okay, these guys are just like get them off my screen type deal, but
Like,
like
it,
leave them
yeah.
there a little longer.
Well, and like them talking about the cash in and all that,
Oh
like
my god.
whether they do it or they don't, it's still perfect to come out and just be like, "Hey, remember us?" Because there were Otis. I forgot he had it for a while. He never taunted anybody with it,
Oh my
and I
god.
wanted him to be world champion when he
Otis
won it. I
won the
was
Money
so
in the
excited.
Bank.
Yeah, that's why Miz has it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Wow. I I want to know because you know damn well that this was not the plan the
Oh, it
whole
wasn't.
time.
Otis was definitely going to be world champion at
Like
one
I
point.
want to know, I want to see those papers from the writers to know the original storyline, but we'll hear about that in like 8 years from now. But
Or if Otis asks for his release in the coming 2-3 years, he'll talk about it on a podcast.
more than likely, yeah.
Please, if you want to come and talk to us, we will definitely take that interview.
We will definitely take interviews. Yeah. But yeah, and then go figure Goldberg comes out.
He says all of 4 words pretty much.
You, me, this Sunday. You're
Yeah.
next.
So I guess it's more than 4 words, but like a handful.
6.
There we
6
go.
to 8 words is what I will give Goldberg.
Hey,
Um,
but I mean, it
showed
is
off
his
his
gimmick.
true promo potential.
I would much rather him do that and then just do a stare down because Goldberg's an intimidating person. But
Yep.
when he starts talking, it's like, hey, are you gonna
Hey,
channel Steiner?
we were just talking about keyboard warriors and how I feel comfortable sitting here. You put me side by side with Goldberg. Let me tell you, I'd be telling him he's the greatest wrestler in the world.
Oh, I would not say this to Goldberg's face at all. And all honesty, I am a huge Goldberg fan. I just don't, and it's
I
not
was a
him
fan
that's
of
doing
Goldberg.
this stuff.
I was a fan of Goldberg. I was
Yeah,
like that's the thing.
but
I sit here and I mean I've hated on Goldberg the past 3 podcasts. I really have.
exactly.
But the thing is, what like I had mentioned it, I believe in podcast 0 or test 1 when he came back, and it was him and Brock in that first match. I was hyped to have Goldberg back.
Oh yeah, I loved it, and I was so excited to get Goldberg back, and he looked like he was in the shape that Goldberg should be in. But he just the WWE started booking him to do these weird segments where he'd just take the belts off the top guys
There
and then
there's a
leave.
there's a fun fact here for you. They said it on commentary last night. Since Goldberg has returned, every championship he has faced for, he has won.
Well, it wasn't just said on commentary. Drew said that in his promo. He said
Did
he's
he?
going to break that streak. Yeah,
I missed that. Okay, that's
yeah.
on me.
Drew said, "I'm gonna break Goldberg's streak of him coming and challenging every champion and taking it. He's not going to take my championship."
Apparently that
Something
went
along those
in one
lines.
ear and out the other.
That was just before Miz and
Miz and
Morrison came out.
Morrison.
Like just before, like he finished his sentence and Miz's music hit.
Okay. But yeah, Goldberg comes out, says all of 6 to 8 words, and then of course Miz and Morrison are on the apron, on the
Do it,
ropes.
hit him. Come on. He's getting in your face. He's getting in your face. Like that's all they did. It was funny. I loved it. Like
Granted, I like as much as I don't like where it's heading. If I had to pick one good part of the segment, if I had to, I will say them walking over, flipping them into the ring, and then Goldberg hitting the spear on Miz and McIntyre hitting the Claymore on Morrison, and then facing off. I think that was done well to not
yeah,
see any physicality between them,
yeah.
but them being like, you know,
Well, I think that is a very similar to what Cena and Batista did before their clash at Mania. Obviously the match didn't end up being that great, the last man standing match, but uh, or maybe that wasn't out of
I
Mania,
was gonna
but
say I
whatever.
don't believe that was. I
Uh,
believe that was
but
whatever show would have followed, but they
right,
I believe they
they did
had the
pretty
match
much that
at
exact.
Mania.
Yeah, they had that pretty much exact same thing
Hmm.
where they beat up two other people and then just kind of looked at each other,
I mean,
and that's all
it's a
you
cliche
need.
thing. It's a cliche thing,
Yeah.
but it works with the right guys. It doesn't
Oh,
work
it
with
does.
everybody.
Exactly, you have to have the right, and it's honestly, it's gotta be the big guys. You couldn't have, like, Rey Mysterio and Cody Rhodes, for instance, do this. Like,
Oh, come
I'd
on.
love to see it, but you just couldn't do it.
Oh my
Like,
God, Ray kicked him in the ankle.
oh, he's got like, the 619 is a great move,
Oh, the 619 is awesome.
especially knowing what's under Rey's pants with the knee
The
braces and
knee
all that.
brace, yeah.
Like, it's a much more there's more to that move than people realize, but yeah, the little kick to the knee and makes them immediately go to the rope kinda does that's the wrestling for you, like
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Goldberg, as I said, spears Miz, Drew Claymore's
yeah.
Morrison, and then they face off. And then we get Charlotte Flair in Gorilla, just another one of
She
those.
calls herself Miss WrestleMania. Was that ever an official thing? Because I thought that was Santina. And you know I'm right.
Okay, so technically speaking, Santina Marella is Miss WrestleMania. They have not held another one of those
Well, because it was
battle
for the
royals
nickname.
or
Because
anything.
they were like, we have Mr. WrestleMania and Shawn Michaels. We need to make a Miss Wrestle, and they gave it to
Yeah.
Santino
Well,
Marella,
I would assume
Santino's sister.
I would assume that her doing that is purely because of them main eventing last year or
Well,
2 years ago.
she
Sorry.
had mentioned stuff about them winning or her being like a really dominant person at Mania, and I get that. Like when she was the Divas champion, she became the first Raw Women's champion, but they
Yeah.
call
Yeah, she
like
became the first women's, and like
you know
they
like
had the triple threat. She was in the first ever women's main event of Mania last year.
yeah.
She beat
But
Rhea
when she
Ripley.
said that, I was like, I don't know if you can claim yourself as Miss WrestleMania. Like, I
Well,
feel like that's something people have to call you, but
the thing is,
that's just me.
Sean was the first ever one to proclaim himself as Mr.
Well,
WrestleMania.
I thought it was an announcer just started. They started calling him that because of the way he was at Mania.
From
Like, I
my
didn't think.
knowledge, he was the first one to ever make a
Okay,
comment about that.
maybe I was just remembering history wrong. If that's the case, then whatever,
There's a
fine.
lot of history, so one point like that to not remember it correctly is,
Yeah, in all honesty, if I think she needs to have more matches at Mania in order to do that. Like she's had 6 Mania matches.
give or take. Well, okay, hold on. So
Because
we
her
are
first
going.
one was the Network Mania in 2014. It had to have been because
No,
that was when
no,
that was the
that
Divas
was
champion.
no, that was WrestleMania 30. She was with Sasha Banks and somebody else in Triple H's entrance when he went to
Oh,
face
so then it
Daniel
was 2 years
Bryan.
after that. It was 2 years
It
after that in
it was
2016.
it was AT&T Stadium. It was Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky when they uh yeah, transferred the Divas to the women's title.
Yeah.
Um, it was that triple threat, and she had won it.
Yeah, and
Um,
she walked in as Divas champion.
yeah,
So her reign continued
yeah,
basically.
because I'm trying to think to 31. 31's women's match was AJ Lee and Paige against, I want to say, like, the Bella
The Bellas.
Twins or
That's the
something
name
like
that's in my
that.
head.
But that was 31's, and then 32, because that was the night they officially were the women's roster.
Yeah, because they had Lita come out and present her with the title, didn't they?
Yeah,
Or a talk about the
she
title
had
or something
presented it
like that.
earlier in the night or something. But yeah,
Yeah.
I still don't think to proclaim Miss WrestleMania. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing some statistics that I, you
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I'm not saying she can't do it, but I just feel like maybe she needs to do a bit more, but that's just me being a freaking critic.
Oh, exactly.
Like,
That's why we got our mics in front of us, and that's why we're doing this, because
I
we're
mean,
gonna
if
be
you look
critical.
at my name, I am the heckler of wrestling. So,
Yeah, pretty well. But yeah, so we end up going from that interview to Charlotte Flair versus Shayna Baszler. And only a matter of, I mean, what, 3-4 minutes into the match, Nia Jax comes in and attacks Charlotte.
because Charlotte gave her a drop kick like that suspended through the ropes drop kick that everybody's been doing recently.
Yeah,
Um,
like
yeah,
I was like, why bother? Why did you bother putting this on when we were just gonna end it in 3 minutes?
because it was to make this match the 6 women tag match because Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke came out and saved Charlotte after because Nia and Shayna were jerks beating on her and whatever and then Lacey came out and
And started attacking Charlotte.
yeah
So
because this was
when
a mess.
my
This was a
favorite
mess.
thing is on my notes here, as it went to commercial, as they were all brawling, I literally put, I have a feeling it's going to be 3-on-3 when we get back from commercial. And then we come back from commercial and it's Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, and Charlotte Flair versus Lacey Evans, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler. Um,
Yeah,
which we end up getting what I can only assume is, I guess we can call it a botch finish.
has to be because of the
Um,
what happens next.
Shayna Baszler gets counted out. And it
Literally,
seemed
as
really
she throws
awkward.
Charlotte. Yeah. She throws Charlotte in the ring, and then you get 10, and it's like, bing, bing. It's a, excuse me?
Yeah, nobody seemed quite sure as to what was happening, and it with the outcome in that, like if you look back on what happened, there was absolutely zero reason for it to happen. So it had to have been like a botch on whoever's part. And we
Yeah.
were talking about this beforehand. The refs are told, if you're making a pin, you count as if you're counting to 3, regardless of if it's a finish or not, if something's happened. Same with the countouts. You're counting to 10. You're going to count to 10. You're not going to stop and make it very obvious. But it just, like, the look on everybody's faces when it happened was like, oh,
Yeah. And
God.
then it goes to commercial really kind of abruptly as well. And then they come back, and the match is restarted, and my actual reaction was, what?
Yeah, and then they show Adam Pearce came out apparently during the commercial and restarted the match again. Um,
Yeah.
and we end up
And I mean,
Charlotte.
then it was the standard match. It was probably what we were supposed to have after Charlotte got pushed into the ring.
Exactly. But
But
we have Charlotte chasing Lacey Evans away. And then we get what didn't look like the prettiest move ever. Nia Jax's they called it on commentary was a choke bomb.
okay.
Um it
She sets her up for a power bomb and then turns it into a choke. Like,
But like Dana hit hard. Like,
well, you can only bring Dana's a big girl. As much as she doesn't look like it, she is built strong. She is a
well, yeah,
lot.
I mean she was a bodybuilder. She's
Yeah. So Nia can only do so much to bring her down with gentle at with one arm. Like,
Oh
she can
yeah.
only do so much.
Oh, exactly. But it was just it seemed rough as hell when she
I
came down. And I mean her head had a good bounce off that ring mat.
I
So,
wouldn't be surprised if Jax doesn't do that move again, honestly.
but we get the choke bomb into the leg drop, sit down leg drop, and Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, and Lacey Evans pick up the win. Um,
Yeah, and me and Mustafa, I think it was just a review of him talking about to Kofi.
they showed after Raw last week, and then before Raw this week. They said his name on commentary, and he said it too. Mustafa Ali is apparently how it's supposed to be pronounced. I'm
Yes.
just finding out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I've heard, I want to say it's Tom Phillips. That's how he's been saying it. I'm like, you're
okay.
saying that really weird. And, uh, but yeah, I guess it's Mustafa.
Yeah, I ended up looking it up after Raw last night because that was one of the things bothering me. I think it was on a Raw talk or something. He made a point to say like this is how you pronounce it. Um so if I butcher that and continue to, I greatly do apologize.
It's
You're
just because the way you read that is Mustafa.
Exactly, but I mean that's the thing with names in general. Like you will read a
But yeah,
name and yeah. But we end up getting Xavier Woods against yet another member of Retribution, Slapjack.
brought to you by Popeyes. I only just realized this was a thing that
Yeah,
WWE
I'm
started doing,
trying
so
to
I wanted
remember.
to make that joke.
They said the line like 6 freaking times.
Oh,
The
brought to you by Popeyes crispy chicken sandwich, something along those lines.
something
Like,
about the chicken breast with pickles on a brioche bun or something, which I'm gonna gather a lot of heat here. Uh, it sucks. Their new chicken sandwich freaking sucks. I will fight anybody who wants to argue that. Their old ones were the bomb. These new ones suck. Anyways, aside from
I've
me
never eaten
bitching
at
about
Popeyes.
Popeyes, aside from me complaining about Popeyes on a wrestling show,
Yeah.
um, we have a pretty decent match.
It was kind of quick, but yeah, it was a good match.
It was
Like,
decent. Woods picking up the victory, and then
Which kind of surprised me. I thought Retribution was just gonna steamroll it, but maybe they're gonna do something with Slapjack. Do you know who's under Slapjack's mask? By curious.
So okay, so you have I'm trying to remember all their names. So you have
T-Bar is
Dio
Dijakovic.
Madden. Dio Madden is Mace.
Yep.
Dijakovic is
T-Bar.
T Bar. So this one is Shane Thorne. I want to
Okay.
say. He was in NXT for a long time, and I got to be honest, I continually forgot about him. I'd see him in the video games. He was in like 3 of the video games, and I
Okay.
was like, "Who is this?" So that's who that is. Um,
Alrighty.
but
I
then
just wasn't
Retribution,
100% sure.
yeah, yeah. And then Mia Yim is
Yeah.
Reckoning. Before I
Yeah,
forget that.
obviously.
But yeah, Woods wins, and then Retribution attacks Woods. Does that whole bit. And I
And we
gotta
thought we were
admit,
gonna I thought we were gonna get this weird chair thing, but
yeah,
didn't.
when Mustafa wound up, I knew we weren't getting a headshot, but there was such an intensity there for a second that I'm like, maybe we are. Who knows? It's not gonna be the first time that one of these guys have gone on live television and done something. I mean, you go
He
back
would have
into the
gotten in a lot of
archives.
trouble for it.
You go back into the archives of guys doing shots, blading, stuff like that when they're not supposed to. Sometimes you go out there and sometimes you just dead ass take a risk. And I didn't figure he was, but I mean that was similar to when Sean Spears came out at Fighter Fest and swung for the fences against Cody's head.
I mean, they
For
even came out and
AEW,
said that was a gimmicked chair
which they've
and
explained more as to what was done to it, but that's for another conversation. That's for another
absolutely.
conversation.
That was just
Um,
something I wanted to toss in.
but quick fun fact about that: Tony Khan wanted to be hit over the head first with it.
Just like Vince wants to do everything first, sort
He
of thing.
he he said, if we're doing this chair shot, you're hitting me over the head first. And Cody basically looked at him and was like, "No, you are not trained. We are not hitting you over the head with a steel chair, Tony." But
Oh,
I guess Spears got ripped a new one backstage by Tony Khan and Moxley. I guess Moxley ripped him a new one. But like I said, we'll talk about that probably come our Thursday cast covering Impact, Dynamite, and NXT. But I think I don't know who was interviewed. I think Cody was. It might have even been from an AEW Unrestricted, which we talk about a lot on here. So go and try and find the interview because it's a really good interview to listen to when he talks about the
mhm.
gimmicked chair. But anyways, yeah, we get a. I was actually intrigued a little bit in the promo from Mustafa. Um,
Yes.
just he's like that's the thing with him is we've shit on Retribution a fair bit the past few podcasts, but this is one of those moments where we're like it's just the writing of him because you hand him a mic and even though that promo was obviously handed to him by a writer, um he made it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like obviously we knew where this was gonna go. They're pulling the Kofi replaced him, so he's replacing Kofi. And I have a feeling Kofi's gonna come back at the Rumble to cost Ali his spot.
I wouldn't be
Like
surprised. I'm not sure how long Kofi's supposed to be out, so I'm not
it was something
sure.
about his jaw, wasn't it? Like he fractured his jaw or something?
Yeah, I think it was Cedric popped him like legitimately. Here we go again with like not all the wrestling's fake. He legit popped him with his knee in his jaw and
Yeah.
broke his
So
jaw or something.
I mean, that could in theory be a couple weeks to a couple months to
I mean,
heal.
hell,
Like
it could even be a distractionary thing at the Rumble. Like once again, we don't know what we're getting out of these
for
Rumble
sure.
matches.
The fact that he's able to talk is amazing because if you fracture or break your jaw, generally they wire it shut if it's bad.
Yeah, and I
Like,
mean they've been doing the New Day podcast there.
yeah,
So
so he can talk, so that's a good thing. That at least to me, that's a good sign that his jaw isn't at least uh making it so he can't live his life, sort of thing, basically.
Yeah,
So he might be able to make a appearance and like pull the arm out of Ali to make him fall, sort of thing.
something like that would be neat. But yeah, and then we transition into Riddle and R-Truth backstage. And
He's
R-Truth
going to get
is
his 24 gold carats.
he's convinced he's getting these freaking golden carrots. I just when he said it, I love R-Truth
I do.
so much. That's similar to what match was it? I think it was a Rumble match where he ran down, slid grabbed a ladder, slid it in the ring, climbed up and was
Yeah.
like
I think that was last year's Rumble, wasn't it?
it was a year or two ago, I'd say. Somewhere around
Yeah.
that. But I
But
just
it's perfect. It's his gimmick, and he shouts out to his idol John Cena all the time.
I
Like,
absolutely love that he does that. And if you've noticed, he's now wearing wristbands and armbands and stuff
did
like
you
that.
notice his shirt is very
It's
similar
very similar.
design?
I had to watch to see if he was just dead ass wearing a John Cena shirt. And then when I saw it was his own design, I'm like, okay, so this is like 100% the route
Yeah.
we're going with this gimmick.
And
Got
I
it.
love it. I love it. Like, it's perfect.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, just quick little backstage segment there. And we are told that we get the VIP lounge next, which the commentary team seemed very surprised because when they showed Riddle walking at first, they're like the Gauntlet's up next. And then they do the little bit there and then they're like, "Okay, apparently we're getting the VIP lounge." And I'm like, "Don't you guys have the script in front of you?"
Yeah, so and isn't the Gauntlet the main event? No, it's
Nope.
not. No.
Nope. Nope.
It's the second to last.
But But yeah, so we end up getting the VIP lounge with the Hurt Business. I cannot stand that they call Lashley Roberto. I wanted to jump out a window
Uh,
when they called him Roberto.
I kind of laughed though. The first time he said it, I was like, "Who's Roberto?" And then I
I
had to think. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
I had to stop. I was like, who who am I missing here?
And I had to because everybody's calling him Lashley right now, right? And then MVP calls him Roberto. So I was like, "Oh, Bobby. Okay, yeah, it has to be from that." Like,
I,
yeah,
I I honestly, one side note, still along with this segment, but when they came out and seeing the four of them standing there and having the gold and that, the only thing that I could imagine, and we've discussed it before, is I'm like, you guys cannot screw this up. We literally have the next you know, let's compare it to, we've compared it previously to Evolution, but as well as like the Nation of Domination.
that's probably more where they're leaning towards, and I bet they're gonna add more people in. I wouldn't be surprised if Ricochet joins later, and
But
you
like,
know,
if they
but
could push them in the way of like an Evolution style, like you have standing in that ring, you have four, you like anybody can fight me on this. You have four talented individuals, whether it's in the ring or on the mic or both,
yeah, MVP is clearly transitioning into a manager slash
which is fine.
whatever you want to call it role. But something when you mentioned the entrance for Hurt Business, did you notice Shelton forgot to take his mask off and he subtly slid it into his pocket?
Yeah, he got out and he like pops it in his pocket. And he
Like,
posted on Twitter though. He was like he like quoted like protecting those around me or something, but you could see it on his face and I'm pretty sure he turned to MVP and was like, "Fuck."
yeah. But it's what I mean, at least it shows that WWE is diligent backstage. Before
Well,
they
yeah.
came out, they were wearing their mask.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly, which is nice to see. And I mean, I know it took a lot for them to even put a protocol in place. Thank you, Kevin Owens.
is
But
Kevin Owens the reason that it's in place? Okay.
yep.
That's very cool.
Yeah, he pushed for it after the first outbreak. I believe shortly after Mania last year, he pushed for masks.
That's
Um,
good.
and I don't know if this is true or not, so take my words lightly. I remember seeing somewhere that he basically told them to the extent of like, if we're not mandating masks, I'm not coming to work.
And you know what? At the time, every government official told everyone that that was their right. You don't have to come to work if you don't feel safe. So, no offense, even if they're independent contractors, that's a person
Oh,
who's working for somebody.
he's
Like,
got a family, man. He's got a
yeah,
family. I don't care. Like that was similar to Roman pulling out of the main event. You know what? The guy was
yeah.
sick. He was fighting
Well, he
something
had
already. He just had brand new uh was it newborn twins or something? Like
he has a newborn in the house for sure.
yeah, like they had just had a newborn a matter of a few weeks later. I'm like, you know what? Sure.
No,
Sure.
I was not mad at Roman when he left. I was mad when he came back. That's a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole other story. But yeah, Hurt Business comes out and they're talking about being draped in gold and whatnot, and they give MVP uh the 24 karat gold
Yeah.
necklace, the THB, the Hurt Business.
Similar to his MVP one that I don't know if he still wears it or not, but
I believe he does when he comes out in his wrestling gear for a
okay, because
match.
the when he came out in the gauntlet, he was wearing his shirt that just had it, like the shirt,
Yeah,
this
I
line that just
noticed
has it.
that.
So that's why I was like, I see. I don't know if he still wears it or not. So
So, but and then our
I,
truth.
I
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to laugh because I thought of something while this happened at Mania or even at like Rumble or something. It'd be so amazing if the Hurt Business came out in MVP's tunnel. Like, I want the
That'd be
tunnel to come
cool.
back.
That'd be
Like,
cool. Change it up to be like the black and gold instead of like the
yeah,
silver and
update it.
purple and that. But yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
really neat. I do
I
agree.
it'd be a callback to MVP and it'd just look cool and it'd give them that cool entrance they
If they're
deserve.
put
Like,
in a prominent place for Mania, I guarantee you. Because I mean, we
yeah,
always have elaborate stuff for Mania, and this year they're gonna push to make it feel like Mania. Like how
absolutely, yeah.
large they go, it's hard to say, but I can see us getting something like that. But
Well, I loved the tunnel because it
it was
just made
cool.
MVP so special. Like,
I remember seeing it live, and like it took forever to blow it up, and then it was deflated in like 30 seconds.
but I imagine now they have technology that it'll go up
Oh,
and down
oh,
in
easily,
seconds. Like,
easily. I mean, you're talking 13, 14 years ago at this point,
yeah,
so
like there's gonna be no issues with it getting the thing inflated and then getting it off stage. Like, have them be the last entrance for the match, so that way we're not paying attention to the ramp if you really have to take it a while to get it off. Like,
pretty well. Yeah, especially at Mania. Like if it's two teams or whatever, have them be the second ones to come out. It's that easy.
yeah, then the ramp's a mile off the ring and nobody cares. Like,
But we have R-Truth coming out, talking about his birthday, wanting his 24 gold carats.
and he
Um,
looks genuinely sad. Like,
he
he's
he
just like,
he is very good at what he does. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then we have all the 24/7 title competitors basically come out. Hurt Business start a big old beat down on him. And the segment basically ends with Riddle sliding in and getting a good knee strike on, I believe it was MVP.
Yeah, it was on MVP.
Um,
Um, but I thought this was going for R-Truth losing his 24/7 title to MVP
I thought it
because
was
he's the
too.
only one with no title.
100% thought that's where it was going.
Like, I would be fine with that because it would have made sense for Hurt Business. It's the easiest title for them to grab up for him right now. Like,
I just don't
I
want them to be gimmicky. I'm so afraid,
right.
especially with all the infighting. Because when I was looking at the four of them standing there and seeing the three with the titles, I was like, honestly, like it would have to be built right. I'm not saying just slap it there, but honestly, if you were to move the US title to MVP, because MVP at this point in his career, as we said with him transitioning, don't throw him in the main event. Put the
He
US
never was
title
in his
there.
original career run, so why put him there now? As much as he
Exactly.
might deserve a world title run, unfortunately, he can't do that now.
No, I
Like,
don't think it would work. But get that US belt over to MVP and put the
bring
world
it back to
title
the
on
flag one.
Lashley. Like, I could see the four of them standing there with those belts looking
Oh
like running the place. Like, that's my point with the Evolution
yeah.
comparison. Those four have the complete ability, talent, and on the mic and all that to absolutely run that place. They
Well,
do.
yeah, they do. And I mean, the US title that Lashley has was actually introduced, now that I think about it, by MVP.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it would make sense for Hurt Business to also redesign the tag titles, because
Can we
in my
please?
opinion, they are hideous.
They are the worst freaking titles.
Like, and I mean, the plates themselves, if you actually look at them, they're coated in detail. They just don't have any paint.
Like,
Like,
I'm like, we're sitting here and their world titles are literally just the W logos, but I would buy one of those, as you've seen previously. They're behind me now if you're watching the video. If not, if you're listening to the audio, I have replicas, which you do as well. I would buy one of those again before I buy the current tag titles from WWE.
I would buy the like Raw tag titles from '04 before I buy any tag
Oh,
titles.
the old school tag titles were so nice, but
The one, yeah, like I don't know. I always picture Matt and Jeff with them, but they never were like always on those belts. But that is my favorite tag belt. Honestly, one of my favorite belts ever.
so you're talking the world tag team titles.
The one with the red, not the blue.
Yeah, the world tag team titles, because there was
Yeah,
the WWE tag team titles and the world tag team titles. And see, that's what I
yeah,
liked back then when they did that, because we had Raw and SmackDown. We had two different brands, and I liked that we
yeah.
didn't have to be like, it's the Raw
No,
champion
this is the
and the Smack,
WWE Championship. This is the World Championship.
and that's
They're
how they
two different things.
played it with the tag belts and that, and I always loved that. But anyways, we end up getting after the VIP lounge segment, Truth is backstage with Adam Pearce, says he wants to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match.
Because of course, I mean that's what he's that's
That's what
true.
this Sunday is, right?
Yeah, I mean it's Money in the Bank. He didn't watch the start of the segment. It's fine.
And then Styles comes in and literally ends up being exactly what we said, I believe, it on the Sunday podcast, which was, is he literally just the measuring stick for the
Yeah.
Rumble? Um
And Adam's like, "What? You want to be the guy who's the standard bearer? Okay, yeah, you can be that guy."
um
And then they just move on.
yeah. And so up next we have
That's literally what Raw did too. They were like, "Yeah, and we're moving on now."
yeah,
Like,
literally 100%. Sheamus and John Morrison, decent showing for sure, with
it was a great singles match.
Sheamus coming out on top. And honestly, as good as the match was, I'm them flipping into what comes next, the handicap match, Miz offering the handicap matchup. This is exactly where the show, in my opinion, I was hooked. And after this point, there wasn't a whole lot that I was disappointed with in the overall light of it.
Sure.
Because we ended up getting Sheamus versus Miz and Morrison in what I felt, it felt like a good old school match.
For sure.
There was elements of it just being a beat down with the match happening, and I liked near the end them trying, Sheamus has that fight left in him. He's trying to do it and he just couldn't pick up the win. The storytelling that ended up happening in the handicap match, I was actually very surprised by, and I
Yeah,
enjoyed
for
it a
sure.
lot.
No, I absolutely agree there, but my thing is this is exactly what WWE has been doing the last 2 weeks. It is match happens. "Oh, hey, wait a second. No, we're going to do another match." Like, and I don't like
That
that.
that does bug me, but the thing is the past few weeks we've gotten so used to that happening, and the match before and the follow up, they're good, but they're not noteworthy. Where I was in,
Right.
that's where I'm saying I was. When it happened, I was like, seriously, we're doing this again. And then the match happened, and I was like, you know what? As much as still in the back of my head, I'm like, why are we doing this again? That match
Yeah.
actually like
Well,
was
both matches were amazing. I loved the first singles match, and I loved the handicap match, but it's just the way that WWE books it bugs me. Like, it's just, why didn't we just do the handicap to start with? Like,
that's fair.
you know,
That's fair. Um and so Miz and Morrison pick up the win in that one. And then we move into we had an absolute train wreck of an opener with the women's tag match in that. Well, what started as a singles into the tag in that. Um Surprisingly, I was this, even with it being a matter of 3 minutes, I was relatively intrigued by this promo. Um,
yes,
so we had Lacey Evans and Ric Flair in the back. Lacey trying to, I guess, learn some escapes from some grapples, but obviously being super flirty with Flair.
yeah, absolutely.
And Charlotte comes in, tells Lacey to get the hell out of there, and Lacey obliges. And then we
A little
have,
too easily, I thought, and
I
it
did
makes
too.
kind of sense
It
why in after.
Well, I was like, why the hell would she run out that quick? Like, if her and Flair, like, if her and Rick are that good, like, when Rick but I was like, okay, later on. But the exchange between Charlotte and Rick was very, very well done.
Yeah,
Um, just him being like, you know, basically in a sense being like, I'm still Ric Flair. Like, just
yeah,
because you
no, for
are the
sure.
star now, I am still Ric Flair. Like, don't forget that. And her basically just being like, you're going from a legend to an old man. And
Yeah.
it was a really, like I said, for a 3 minute backstage promo, it came off really good to me.
For sure. My only gripe with it is very much what Rick and Charlotte have been doing the last 3 years, honestly, as a
It's
promo.
been an on and off over and over and over again.
So, like, as much as, yeah, it's a nice little touch, but it's been done to the point where I'm pretty sure Charlotte and Rick have slapped each other. I think
Yeah,
Rick has slapped Charlotte
more than
once.
likely. This is
Um,
the only time, though, thinking through it, this is the only time that I'm sitting here thinking it makes sense. Because the
for
previous
sure.
times when
No,
they've
yeah.
done it, it's just been her getting pissed off at her dad. Where
Yeah,
this
no,
time
this
they've
is the first
actually
time.
built it.
She said it right. She's not the bad guy in this situation. She's not, like, she said it herself. She isn't. And that's very fair, as evident as her walking into the woman's right from Lacey
Yeah,
when she leaves.
yeah.
Like,
So,
which, and Rick goes to help her, which I thought was very nice. But Lacey pulls him off and goes, no, no, no. And they walk out, and Rick's just like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, so it, like, that's the thing. It had little bits where it leaves you going, oh, like if Flair would have
yeah.
just hauled ass out of the room, it would have been like, but even just that little bit of him leaning over trying to check on her and Lacey being like, no, and Rick just, and then going, like, it was the little bits there that I was like, okay, you make me kind of want to see
Well, I can see
next
this
week.
being, yeah, I can see this being long-term storytelling here to the point where this probably even goes to Mania, this whole story.
It'll probably blow off at Mania. I could see it.
Um, with Rick getting involved but helping Charlotte on the other side, realizing that he was in the wrong, he needs to help his daughter, not step all over her and try to
Yeah,
ruin her career just because his career is in fact on the downscale, I guess you could say.
yeah.
He's not the Ric Flair of old. He is
He is
very much
you know, it's what
he's
Ric
still the
Flair
nature
can be
boy.
at
Like
this age. Like,
he's still wheeling dealing limousine riding,
Jet
kiss stealing,
wheel,
jet
yeah,
flying, whatever it
all the
is,
good
like,
stuff, all the good stuff.
he's still all that. He just can't go in the ring, and so that's why we get this comparison of, "Oh, he's washed up." No, he is still a fantastic person to if I ever had a chance to sit down and talk with Ric Flair,
Oh, jeez.
oh my god, the matches I would wanna ask about.
I would kill for a half an hour of being able to sit there and pick like the brain of Ric Flair. Like
Yeah,
that's like
of a
or
lot of
like the
different legends.
Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like you give me 30 minutes to pick their brain and I still wouldn't be I wouldn't even crack the surface of what I
Well,
wanted to ask in 30 minutes.
even as a kid, I could say that about Cena. Like, that's somebody I really want. There's a lot of stuff I wanna know about,
Oh,
like, him and Orton.
I'd kill to pick Cena's brain
Like,
about
but I don't I know from what I've heard in interviews and stuff with Cena, you don't even need to ask him a question, you just say, "Okay, tell me about your life," and he just goes, from what
good.
I've heard. So I'm like, that's all I wanna say, I just wanna sit down with Cena and just be like, "Okay, go."
Hey, John Cena, we would love to have you on Walking the Ropes.
Oh
Have
my
your
god.
people get in contact with our people. Our people is literally us. Um,
I honestly, I don't know if I'd be able to speak during the entire like, as much as
that's
that makes
fine.
me sound
I can do the interview as you sit there going. "Ah."
as much as that makes me sound like a child, I've literally never been closer than, 3 rows in a dark match for Cena.
Dude,
Like, I
when I met Kenny Omega and I literally shook his hand and was standing next to him, the cotton mouth I had, I could barely get words out to him, so I know exactly
like,
what you mean.
I've never been starstruck, but, we get that, like, we talk about the moment you and I had with Devon.
We had a moment with
That was
Devon
so really
Dudley.
cool.
Yeah.
That was so very, very cool, but that moment, if I were to ever get a chance to sit and talk with Cena for even 2 minutes, I don't know if I'd even be able to say a word to him. I'd just be like, "Haza."
Never washing that hand again. Anyway.
Not even that, no, it's just because he is, like, every match when I was a kid, the main event was Cena.
Oh, it was. It
Like,
was 100%.
and
Yeah.
so, yeah, now seeing him in these movies and whatever, everybody's like, "Oh, it's whatever." My favorite thing to throw at non-Cena fans is, the fact that he is, granted the most wishes for the Make-A-Wish Foundation,
Yep. Which is really awesome.
because the look on their face goes from, "He's a jerk," to, "Oh."
Yeah, yeah, really? Really, is he?
Like, yeah, but let's move on from my rant of Cena, now well,
First
I
we had
guess
the
we're
Casey
not.
one on we had the
All
Casey
right,
one on
I'm
Sunday.
gonna rant. I'm gonna rant. It's fine, but that's a totally different one. She's an up and coming star, so that's gonna be rants in the future.
So up next we had R-Truth against AJ Styles in the qualification match, which I mean for what the match was, it actually ended up being decent. It was a decent showing.
Yeah, no, it was very nice. I mean, Truth hits the five knuckle shuffle and goes for an AA. Like, how? Like, I love it. It's so funny.
But AJ ends up picking up the win via submission, calf crusher submission hold. Um,
That does look like a brutal move to be in.
it hurts. That's
Have you
another
been
one of
in
the
it?
ones where I've been properly put into it. It freaking hurts.
I've been in some of, like, the arm locks, like Kimuras and stuff like that. I've been in a couple of ones like that from my, time. I was, in martial arts as a kid, so there were some submission holds like that, and you look at them and you're like, "How does that hurt?" And then you get put in and you're like, "Oh, that's how it hurts."
Yeah, something like a Kimura. I remember seeing it used for the first time that I actually paid attention because like we talked earlier about MMA and that and like I watch a bit of MMA. I'm not as into it as I once was.
Yeah.
But I watched a lot of it and I watched a lot of it around the time where Lesnar was there and then Lesnar jumped ship and started using it in WWE. And when he used it and started using it prominently in WWE was the first time I ever paid attention to the move. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting there going like, I could see how it might hurt, but I really don't know. And I don't remember who I asked to lock it on me the one day, because I'm that crazy son of a bitch who just is like, I want to see if this actually hurts.
You
Uh,
did hit yourself with a chair, or have one of your friends hit you with a chair for a drama skit, but
hey man, that was fantastic.
it was. But moving on.
But like it, yeah, that hurts. But that's even like, you look at something like the figure four. When it's locked in and actually like it's one of those moves where I know Joe Rogan's talked about it on his podcast. They've watched guys like be locked in submissions, and he's like, you can get out of it so easy. That's where the sports entertainment end of it comes in. And so like I've been locked in some of these submission holds by wrestlers where like you could normally easily get out of them. But if they're locked in properly and somebody is actually just, you know,
Wrenching on it,
wrenching
yeah.
on it, it freaking hurts, man. Like
Well,
there are ones that do legitimately that they're easy to get out of, but if you
for
let
sure.
somebody lock them on you because you're like, but could it hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's just it. Like on TikTok recently, I actually saw this wrestler who referenced a move that he's only seen one person do back in the day, and it was TJ Perkins. It was a figure four uh, sharpshooter.
Yes, I have seen that.
It looks brutal. He locked it in. I can't remember who he locked it in on, but the person just immediately tapped, and I was just like, "Oh my
Yeah, that
god!"
that probably doesn't feel the best.
Like, yeah, it's just you look at the figure four, it already looks painful. Then you turn that into a sharpshooter. Like, no, thank you, no, thank you.
But yeah, so good match there. And then
Yeah, absolutely.
we get a recap of Randy Orton's uh promo from last week. I'm pretty sure it was just the whole
It
thing.
ran the entire promo. They're like, "Oh, and we're gonna give you a recap," and then they just ran the entire promo, and I was like, "All right, fine,"
But
but
then we get Alexa's Playground, which this is one of those instances where we're in this COVID pandemic era of wrestling, and some people like this stuff, some people don't. I know personally, by the time this segment was done, I was sitting there and I 100% enjoyed Alexa's Playground.
oh,
The
for sure.
the the character development that they're doing with her, the way they're building her, letting it just be, it feels like it's not like watching a horror movie creepy, but it's just it's got that undertone of like, okay, this is a little like
Well,
um
it's like if you've ever seen the new make of Child's Play, uh,
which I have
it's
not, but
it's on Amazon Prime. But anyway, I watched it, and the start of it before the doll actually goes on the murderous rampage, that's kind of where it is. Like it's the doll's just kind of looking at you, and then it
it's just
stops.
that like your
Like
skin crawls almost.
exactly.
But like it was great, the Alexis Playground segment. Um just
With the fiend face flipping over top of
oh my
her
god, that was
towards the
so
end.
cool to end it.
Yeah,
Um but we move on from that because that revolves around the main event there. We
yeah.
go into the gauntlet match, Riddle's gauntlet match. If he
And if he
wins,
wins, yeah.
he go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say yeah. If he wins, he gets a shot at the U.S. title. But you were gonna say that, so
But yeah, and it ended up being from start to finish pretty damn good with I mean the storytelling through it was
yeah,
pretty decent, but it starts with Shelton Benjamin. Um and we end up obviously the overall outcome I kind of expected going into the match.
yeah.
Um but Shelton Benjamin gets beat basically, like not directly because of but but in a way, it was because of the distraction from
Yeah,
Cedric.
because he got
Um,
up on the ropes to distract Riddle and successfully did that. And then the ref came over and yelled at him for doing that.
yeah.
Like,
So it's just another one of those things where I'm like, please don't ruin this.
yeah. And they keep arguing as it goes on because that ends up costing Shelton his match against Riddle, and it goes into MVP. And MVP's sitting in the ropes. He's literally through the middle rope, and he's like, "Hey, you guys stop!" Basically, trying to be a parent in this situation. You hear the bell ring, and unfortunately for me in this situation, I look at MVP as the legend, not a legend per se, but a veteran. Um,
He is 100%. He's the veteran of the group.
as soon as he heard that bell ring, he should have known what was going to happen. He should have turned around as soon as that happened. He knows what's going to happen.
Yeah,
And
that's one of those
so
moments
unfortunately,
where it's like, you know, we've made the comment before, like, don't treat us like we're dumb, but like, dude, you've been in this sport for how long? You know, the second that bell rings, it means the match starts.
well, I'm pretty
Don't
sure MVP's used that tactic to win matches before.
exactly like
Like,
why like screw what's happening out there.
yeah,
They are adult men. You've got a match you're gonna be
yeah.
in.
And as unfortunate as your team's now arguing, you got a match to deal with. You got like your buddy's trying to not have to defend against this person he's clearly worried about. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a gauntlet match for his number one contender. Like,
But MVP ends up getting locked up in a submission and taps out in a matter
it looked
of
like a figure four to me.
it was some kind of a leg lock or something, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
ends
didn't
up
have a
tapping
name
out.
for it.
And so Cedric Alexander's up last.
And they go off on a pretty good match for a while.
Yeah, and then Riddle wins with I believe it was just a roll up, like straight up. Um,
As it goes.
I believe it was just a like a some kind of a roll up that he picks up the win with Riddle.
Okay, yeah. So Riddle locked in a triangle. Cedric power bombed him, but
Right.
Riddle grabbed it again. Cedric tries to do the power bomb again, but as he comes back down, Riddle basically Hurricane Rana's it into a pin.
Yeah. So so Riddle picks up the victory, and as he's heading up the ramp, Lashley attacks him.
As yeah, I knew that was gonna happen.
He
With
was
the way the
stalling for
camera
too
was
long.
positioned.
He was
Yeah, exactly.
stalling.
Well, and unfortunately, you could kind of see Riddle going
He was looking over his shoulder.
like
Like I was like, okay, so Lashley.
yeah, which
um,
again, that's sports entertainment. If you're looking for it, you see it. If you're not, you don't, right? Like,
exactly. It's little things like that. I mean, you can notice that all the time in matches, people looking behind them to see where the person is, or
well, even on Dynamite, I think there was a distraction last week, and you could see. Oh yeah, for Cody's before Jade Cargill came out, he just before she came out, he was checking over his shoulder for a second.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
it
little things. You
happens.
notice it.
Well, it's all about timing and cues in pro wrestling and sports entertainment.
Mhm.
It's all about cues. And so when you're waiting on that cue, and I mean, when you got somebody like Lashley running full tilt behind you, you'd rather be, going into your roll to roll down because like that's one of those things like
Or at least know when you're about to get hit, sort of thing.
exactly, you do not want to like legitimately be blindsided by somebody like Lashley.
And
So
that's just it. Like I'm not complaining about it, but you can just you notice it if you see
oh
it.
yeah.
Like or you notice it if you look for it if you've been watching wrestling for so long like we have.
But
Which is weird to say considering we're 21 and we
it's been a long time.
yeah,
It's been
we've
a
been
long
literally
time.
watching it since we were like as small as we can remember. Like
Yeah,
wrestling has been in our blood.
literally as like I don't remember a time before pro wrestling was in my life, really.
Yeah. The
So,
first match I can vividly remember watching start to finish is Ray's Royal Rumble win.
yeah.
That's the one match I can vividly remember watching start to finish, but yeah.
But and then we end up getting a promo from Edge, which it looks to be he more than likely was in North Carolina for the interview.
North Carolina.
Wrong promotion. Uh
Sorry.
but he's talking about his injury and stuff like that, and he declares his entry into the Rumble, which I got a pop for.
Oh, I loved
We were
that.
messaging last night. I mean, Edge, if you were to have me put a list of all-time favorites together, I would put probably Edge as my number one, purely because if I'm being honest, and it's weird, but it's my honest take on it. He's the first ever wrestler who, as a heel, and I mean we're talking back to being children again.
Mhm.
As a heel, I couldn't hate him. I was
Mhm.
such a fan of what he was doing on the mic in the ring that even though he was the heel and he was doing everything he could to make you hate him, I was just fascinated
Yeah,
by what he could do. And I think a little bit of it was to do with the fact of he was Canadian and stuff like that, and getting older. It really kept with me with like little things of him um when he retired, and one of the first DVD documentary sets came out for him. He talked about being a huge Kiss fan of the
yeah,
band, and at that point I was going through a huge phase of being an absolute fan of Kiss.
yeah,
His
exactly.
mother's name was Judy, my mom's name is Judy. Like it was just all the little things growing through it. Like at first it was the fact that he was a heel that I couldn't seem to hate no matter how much I wanted to,
And then he got to be face for a while.
and it just kept growing, and he sits probably where Cena would I imagine sits number 1 for you. He sits number 1 for me. And then the list gets really jumbled of like the Takers, Hardys, Kenny, Cody, like
Yeah, for
Bucks.
me,
It gets really jumbled after that, but
and my reasoning, like the reason Edge probably isn't on my top is because of Cena,
because that
because
was
they
the
were
primary
rivals.
feud.
Like, right? So my thing is, as soon as you had your favorite in that feud, that person became your favorite.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
and that was the big feud that probably pulled me into wrestling, Edge and Cena.
It was probably mine as well, if I'm
Yeah,
being honest.
the one that really hooked me in. Like, obviously, I'd already been watching, but I had never been dedicated to watching every week until Edge and Cena were on TV all the time, going at each other. I'm like, oh, what's gonna
Ed
happen
Edge and
next?
Cena was fantastic. But
Yeah,
yeah, he declares himself into the Rumble, which is going to be awesome, and I would have absolutely no issue with him coming out at any number and taking the win. I don't care. I have zero issue with it.
yeah,
I've seen on Twitter some people were actually making comments about uh like he doesn't need the win and he shouldn't have the world title and stuff like that. Honestly, I would not have one issue with it. Not one.
no. And I mentioned to you after he declared his Rumble win, if he goes on to win the title, he needs to bring back Big Gold.
It
He
would
needs
be
to
nice.
retire. So he needs to go after the Universal title, retire it, and bring back the big gold belt. So that way we have the big gold belt and the WWE championship again.
He that's a thing though. If you want him to switch out the belts, he won't go. He will not go for the Universal because I can guarantee you they want to keep that. He'll end up
I know.
having to go after the WWE one, and they'll
I don't want
either.
that retired though. I don't want that's the historic belt for WWE, right? Like can't
Well, the thing is if he ends up winning that, they keep it the WWE Championship and have him pull back out the old rated R spinner or some shit,
I
or
wouldn't
they
mind.
switch it over to the World Heavyweight Championship and give him back Big Gold. They will not take the Universal title. They will not take that name off of it. I do not see them taking the name off of it as much as I wouldn't care from their stance. I would
But the only
assume.
reason I could see them doing it is because since its creation, the Universal title has been probably the least favorite world title in any promotion in wrestling.
Yeah, but they won't switch it back and go with an old name and something like that for the Universal, I don't think. But to be honest, as I said to you last night after the show, if he does win it, they're just gonna stick him with the belt that is now, as much as we may
I
not
wouldn't
like it.
mind considering it exists now. I mentioned the belt that has got denied by Vince.
Yeah, the one that looks like an intercontinental title, basically.
Yeah, it's a nice belt. As I mentioned, I don't think it looks like a world title. If I want Edge to come with some belt other than the big WWE logo belt,
I would
because
as well.
seeing Cena hold it was weird.
It
Like
was.
like when he held that belt, even the scratch logo one, I was like, but you were the spinner guy.
Like, it just doesn't
Like,
feel but that's the worst part of these guys from our childhood, when we had like not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but when we had better belts. I mean,
you're
there's
not
there's still
disrespectful at all to WWE's champion. I mean, the AEW has fantastic belts.
like there is beautiful belts out there still, but like when we had really really nice designs for belts and that, and we seem to irregardless of like the spinner one for Cena or stuff like that, we just attribute a design to a wrestler, irregardless of how it came in or whatnot. If somebody was in a certain picture, it that is the belt. You look at them, it's like the Hardy Boys. Seeing them with the Raw tag team titles when they came back at Mania just felt weird, because that's not the belt that I put on them as a tag team.
Exactly, and that's probably why when Cena did hold the current WWE championship, it looked so jarring to me, at least. It's just I don't think WWE needed to redesign some of their belts. The Intercontinental would have been fine, especially if they kept it the one that Cody originally debuted. If you had known there was two different versions, he made one that had like a textured design to where the lines are in the belt, and then they brought it out with just the clean plates like the classic version.
Yeah.
I don't mind if they just kept the one that Cody had, because it was a lot shinier. It had that more pop and more modern feel to it. Um, and the US title did not need to be redone, just paint it again.
I'll be honest,
The
I don't hate the new Intercontinental title belt. It could have been a hell of a lot worse.
the IC title, I love that new one. It's a very good one. I hate the US title. I absolutely hate it.
Well, it was the last one from our childhoods to be retired. So I think that, like, as much as I'm not a fan of the design either, I think there is a large portion, whether you like to admit it or not, there's a large portion of hostility towards it, purely because it was the last title belt from our childhoods being retired.
Absolutely, but it's still an ugly design.
It's not the best. If you're gonna retire it, should have done something better. But anyways, moving back on into the results
Oh
here.
yeah, we're talking about Raw.
So yeah, Edge declares his entry into the Rumble, and then we move on to the main event, which is Asuka versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's title. We had some good mind games and that throughout this match here.
Asuka
Asuka,
came out strong. Came out really strong.
yep, yeah. And she ends up rolling out of the ring at one point. Looks into the ring, and Bliss is on a rocking horse. Which is one of those, like I was talking about with the Alexa's Playground. They just throw those things in there that make you kind of like, okay,
For sure.
so
And I liked the fact that we got these things and the crowd actually did stay there the whole time for pretty much every single segment that happened during this match. The live crowd stayed there.
Thunderdome crowd. Um,
Um, so that was nice.
I really enjoyed them swapping her over to the like 2019
The
goddess
goddess. Yeah, the
gimmick.
goddess.
Um, which uh
We
I
may or
thought,
may not have done that at an event to her.
oh, definitely did. Guaranteed. So we have that for a second, which
And
it
she's in tears. Like,
yeah, like it's almost as if like the last point she was actually her. Like that's what
yeah,
that's what it felt like to me, was it was the last point she was really her before
yeah.
all the fiend crap happened.
Well, and I
Um
think that, the way she was crying, if Asuka had immediately came up to her and tried consoling her instead of, running at her, I don't think Alexa would have flipped. I think that actually would have saved Alexa and brought her out of the fiend
oh,
trap.
more
It
than
was Asuka
likely.
running at her and Alexa just sidestepping it. She walks over to the corner, and you can tell what she's about to do, but because she's in the current gimmick that she's in, it looks strange. Like she looks like she doesn't want to do it, and then it just happens. So it's very there's some subtle storytelling with Alexa going on, and I think it'll probably end with her coming back to her normal self,
Oh, more than
but
likely.
some way with the fiend doing it to her, like freeing her basically.
Yeah.
So
Um like he actually feels what it's like to have a friend or something, or some shit like that. We get Toy Story freaking 63. Anyways, but yeah, the lights end up going out and come back on, and she's whacked out. um
which is I love the way this character looks. Like
oh, it's fantastic.
they chose this leather like overalls to a skirt type thing, and it works so perfectly for that character.
Oh
Like
yeah.
where because everybody's like, oh well, is she gonna be straight up like the fiend? No, she's nothing like the fiend. Like
And then we as she's going for the win, I would assume we get Orton straight out of Home Alone showing up. I say that because there was a comparison on Twitter this morning of the photos from Home Alone after Harry and Marv get like the iron and stuff on them,
yeah,
and like they get lit on, like they get burned, and that's really close to how he looked, the burned up face.
yeah.
But
It was nice to see him not in the mask
I
again,
was
because
so glad
probably
he
because
wasn't
they
in it.
got so much shit for it.
Oh, more
Like,
than likely. But
but
he shows up behind her and RKO's her, which I mean, the second I saw him there, I'm like, okay, he's gonna RKO her. But there's always that thought in the back of your mind where like, nah, he won't, and then he does, and it's like
well, it's because WWE does not like to do male on female violence.
they
They're very
don't.
much well because it looks like it's a domestic thing, right? And WWE doesn't want to look like they're doing anything wrong.
it's
Very much
it's
why
hard to sell. It is. I don't
it
care who
is.
you are. Like, the thing is, I have no issue with the intergender pro wrestling and stuff like
No,
that. I've watched some really good stuff. I've seen it live, but it's hard to sell. It is.
exactly. Like it like in not even just actual like stories telling like that, even like just there's yeah, no, it's just exactly.
But
I don't know what my point was gonna be there, but yeah, it was just agreeing with you basically.
he RKO's her, and we go off the air. I know you had an issue at the end there with
Yeah.
no call being made.
Well, the ref had disappeared. Once Randy was in the ring, there was no ref.
Was there a ref there when when the lights came back and she was
Yeah, because when she went
gimmicked
for the
out?
move, when she went for the Sister Abigail, the ref was kind of there, and then like the lights kind of went black, kind of as Orton kind of came in, and then the ref was gone.
And I believe, from what I read from the results, it was a no contest. So with
Sure,
the
and
ref
that's
disappearing, that does that it's better than them trying to call a disqualification or something. Calling it a no contest, I'm okay with that.
for
It's
sure.
not
It
my favorite
just
outcome, but
I don't like it with title matches, especially when you and I even said to each other, "So Asuka's losing the belt here, right?"
I
Because
could have
what else
sworn
were
she
they
was.
doing? because what else were we doing here? There's nothing else. No offense to Asuka, she can't be the women's champion anymore at this point. She needs to go away and come back as her Empress of Tomorrow gimmick, I
Yeah,
think. And actually maybe go back to NXT like Finn did. Like, I hate to say it,
I'd
but
much prefer her down there running
yeah,
with the current group that's there comparative to running in the same direction she is now on the main roster.
absolutely. And as much as I hate to shit on WWE's main roster and call NXT not the main roster, because if you could talk to Adam Cole, it is the main roster. Um,
In a lot of exceptions it is. It
oh,
is.
absolutely. And
But
because they
there are
pull
also some exceptions where it's not.
for sure, considering like once they come up to the main roster, if they were an NXT champion, they're not a two-time world champion when they
Like
win
like you claim it's on the same level, but the NXT title does not equivalent out to the WWE or the Universal. So
exactly. Like
there's very evident
the people working for NXT truly believe it is the number one show, and that's how it should be, because they are treating it like the most important thing ever. And I just want WWE to see it like that too, and just instead of taking wrestlers from it, let it be the thing it is.
well, it gives me hope that potentially one day down the line, not going to say anytime soon, don't want to wish harm upon anybody by all means, but one day when Hunter finally gets the reins of that main roster, there will be a product that is from top to bottom 9 times out of 10 more than likely enjoyable. If we're being honest, thinking to how NXT's done and stuff like that. There's off
Yeah,
shows all the time. We've said it about Dynamite, it happens.
it does.
But I mean, he's consistently put on a good product through NXT. Once that main roster is under, his supervision finally, I think we'll have something
Yeah.
good.
And he gives NXT to whoever's working under him currently.
hmm
Maybe even Regal at that point if he's still.
Well, to be honest, once he gets the main roster under his belt, there's no reason that they can't pull NXT up as a third brand.
But the thing is I'm wondering if the reason Vince has that is because managing three brands he learned with ECW is next to impossible.
Well, I mean, there potentially, but I don't know. I think Hunter is a whole different type of beast in that sense.
For sure.
I think he could, but
Well, and no offense to Vince, he wasn't a wrestler really. Like,
no, he was a business person who did some wrestling stuff. He did participate in
his
matches and
dad was a
whatnot,
big
but
wrestling promoter person. I don't think he was a professional wrestler, but he was a
no,
promoter.
exactly. So there's a difference between coming from the people who stand in that ring and put on the show and then like going into that managerial position of in a sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like comparative to on screen when you've got somebody who wrestled for years, MVP, who is transitioning into that manager, Ric Flair. They do a better job than somebody who's just come in and been a manager the whole time.
Oh,
There
absolutely.
are some exceptions of people, Paul
Paul
Heyman,
Heyman.
but there that like it's a rare sense because even people
Yeah.
like I believe like Bobby Heenan at one point I believe was a pro wrestler.
Yeah. I don't
Paul
know about
Bearer, Percy Pringle, he started off as a pro wrestler.
yeah, I don't know about Jimmy Hart.
Jimmy
Jimmy
Hart,
Hart.
Jimmy Hart, I believe was just a
I
manager,
think I
but
was gonna say he's just a manager, but he's one of those standout ones that you look at and he's like, "Hey, I didn't need to be a wrestler. I
that's
my
just it.
voice was good enough."
I could name you 100 managers that were wrestlers, and then ones that weren't, that are standout enough, I could maybe name you, if I tried really, really hard, 5 to 10. But even
Yeah,
then,
if I
I'd
sat there
have
and
to back
think,
check. I'd have to back check because, like, Paul Bearer, I knew he had been in pro wrestling for a really long time, but until watching the Mortician documentary back in the fall, I had no clue that he was a professional wrestler. I just knew he had been a manager forever,
right,
but he was a pro wrestler.
exactly. Like,
Like
yeah,
he,
I mean, well, even still, we mentioned earlier we had that moment with Devon. That was at a dark uh Raw, I'm pretty sure, taping, not even a taping, but
a live event,
a
a
live
live
event is
event.
what they call it, yeah. And he was a producer sitting at basically the announce table, calling the show for making sure everything was on time and all that. And like, that was one of the guys we would see jumping from ladders and doing all these crazy spots, like, but he's
Yep.
sitting there doing the desk job now because he's put in the time and he's realized that this is a job he still wants to be a part of and he wants to help produce this product now.
Yeah.
And I just love that. I love when they can't get out of the business.
But so yeah, that was the end of the night there though, after Orton RKO's Bliss. So we're gonna head off into our individual ratings for the show. Um Now, to preface, we've done it before, but if you're a new listener, our ratings comparative to our of the night um column. So our ratings, we tried to rate off of the actual show from an out of fan perspective, in a sense, trying to put it over with the storytelling, the building, just how solid was the show from start to finish, looking at it less of a fan and more from, I guess, an analysis standpoint. um so what did you give it? We go out of 5.
I gave it a 2 out of 5.
You gave it a 2.
I really like, as much as I liked the Oscar Bliss segment and the Alexa's Playground and all that. Other than Sheamus's match, there was nothing really redeeming for me.
That's fair, that's fair.
Like, and so I can, in good like, sure, there was some good storytelling, but I mean, without the Oscar and, or I guess the Bliss and Orton stuff at the end, I probably would have given this a 1.
Wow. Wow, holy crap.
I didn't enjoy the show at all besides Sheamus's segment.
Well, I gave it a 3. I was actually contemplating giving it even a little more, but then I reflected on the start of the show and was like, you know what, 3, 3 is good.
And maybe I was so sour from the start of the show that I just could not enjoy it, but I couldn't find myself, like, there were segments like the Hurt Business, it was all right, but it was pretty much a carbon copy of what they had done the last couple of weeks. And I don't know.
Well, over to our Twitter poll. So we put up a poll shortly after the shows throughout the week for Raw, Impact, NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown. So according to our poll, which currently we are going off of the system of good, crap, and basically sitting on the fence. Um, we're actually going to give the opportunity for you listeners to give a rating, in a sense, out of 5, starting, I believe, at the Rumble. Um,
Yeah.
so, but for today, we actually had a tie for between it being a good show and it being basically a waste of time. 44.4% on both those, and there was 11.1 percent sitting on the fence as to whether or not the show was decent or not.
So it
Um,
seems like they agreed with our opinions. Like, some people agree with me, some people agree with you
Yeah.
on this one.
Yeah, it was split. I guess you just had to, I don't know, maybe I dug too deep to try and find a redeeming quality because of how bad the start was. Maybe I just didn't want the rest of the show to sit sour with me.
And maybe I was too harsh on it because of the way the show starts. So there's tons of
There's
different ways to
tons.
look at it. I'm not
Exactly.
saying the show was horrible, but there were very few redeeming features in a 3-hour show.
In 3 hours, yes, that is fair, and I will give you that. But so it seems like it was pretty split down the center there. So going from our ratings, we're going to go into our match of the night for Raw. I would assume you're probably giving it to the same as I am, but I'll let you go.
Well, I'm gonna actually specifically give it to the singles match between Sheamus and The Miz,
Okay,
or
where
Sheamus and John Morrison specifically, because they did some really good storytelling that led into the handicap match.
that's fair.
Uh, so I actually specifically the singles match.
And see, I'm specifically going to give it to the handicap match cuz it just, I don't know how to explain it unless you've been in the position, but that handicap match, I almost felt like I was sitting back in 07 08 ruthless aggression era. The There's something about every era we've talked about the product transitioning, and the ruthless aggression era, the matches played out in a certain way a lot of the time. There was certain elements, and I don't know, it just felt like a good match from that time frame. I don't know. I
It's
don't
because
even
it was
think I could
two
point it
guys
out.
from that time frame.
Like
Like
I couldn't even point out what moment it was, but after it I was sitting there going, like, I feel like I just like was on the network watching an '07 Raw for some reason. Like it was good. It was
absolutely,
good.
yeah. Like
So
that's just it. Like their whole segment. That's what I said. Like that whole thing was pretty much my only redeeming factor for Raw for me.
that's fair.
And I'm gonna try to not be this harsh on WWE all the time. I promise I'm not. But
Just wait for SmackDown's review.
all right, I don't qualify SmackDown. That is its own entity.
So next up, we have the segment of the night. Segment of the night can pertain to a match, a promo, anything like that. Just to leave it more wide open. Especially for something, for example, just really quick, the main event of the show, how it kind of went off the rails at the end without an actual finish, is primarily the reason why I wouldn't want to give it match of the night, or because it was more gimmicky. But I may
It
want to
wasn't
give
really a match.
I would
Like
may want to give it segment of the night, because sometimes there are full matches where there is a finish, but they're just too gimmicky, but they are a very enjoyable segment on the show. So
hmm,
that's what this leaves open, and I'll take the lead on this one. I'm honestly giving my segment of the night to the Alexa's Playground um segment. There was just something, I sat there after it just impressed with the production of it, the writing of the segment, the overall presentation of it made me really interested in the character still.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, other than the Hurt Business lounge segment, I can't give it to anything other than Alexa's Playground. Like that was the only one that had proper real storytelling in my opinion to it. Like
Like, it was
it,
just clean.
it worked really good. Actually, you know what? I'll be nice. I'll give it to Edge just because I really like Edge, and that way
Uh
we did Playground and Edge.
that's fair. That's
Seeing
fair.
as
Yeah.
we already acknowledged that the Playground was a good one, Edge's promo was really good.
He's just got away with it. And I mean, once
Yeah,
again, I may be very very biased on that opinion. But he's just got
yeah,
away with some of those promos.
for sure.
Like, the only reason I don't give it there is just not to even say it was bad or that it shouldn't be looked at. Cuz I mean, he announced his return. I mean, once again, this was the
Yeah,
guy who wasn't ever supposed to be able to wrestle again. So as much as that's awesome to me, I like the storytelling out of Bliss's segment
For sure.
more. And it's weird because like I went on that we went on the topic earlier of Edge being my favorite. So for me to not give it there, this is a very rare occurrence.
For sure.
That means that the Alexa's playground segment was that good, basically.
Exactly. And really the only reason I am giving it to Edge is because you gave it to Alexa's Playground. I consider giving it to the Hurt Business segment with the MVP Lounge, but I'd really have to give it to R-Truth, not the Hurt Business. Like,
That's completely fair. And
so
moving on into the last one, we've got our wrestler of the night, whether it end up being somebody actively participating or not. We may want to look into potentially renaming this category because I mean I gave it to Matt Hardy back on Sunday for the week. And I mean he didn't
we'll just
even
call it
wrestle the
Performer
one
of the
night.
Night.
Performer of the night, that works. So I mean,
I think you know where I'm gonna go with this.
well, you go right ahead. You go right ahead. I'll give it to you.
Sheamus all day. He went hard in that singles match, and then he goes extra hard in the handicap match. Like, you you talk about how Sheamus being from that era, he came in, he dominated Cena for the WWE Championship and
Which
just
I
took it from
remember
him.
being so
Like,
mad.
yeah,
I
I was
didn't like
furious.
Sheamus, and I mean, it doesn't help that we had the whole Mark Cuban bullshit at that point too.
Yeah, like there was so much with that, and it felt like it was that Sheamus again, the guy who just came in, kicked ass, and left. Like, and I loved the whole. It felt like you said, 2008 Raw again.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny because we're staying in the same area. I'm gonna double up on mine, uh, just because of the deserving nature of it. Miz and Morrison.
For sure,
I mean they saved the opening segment, which I thought I was gonna be bored out of my bloody mind. And then they put on a fantastic performance in the singles and the handicap.
for
Um,
sure.
it was just I they are playing very very good kind of jerk heels with the bit of comedy behind them. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm very very impressed with their storytelling in every segment that night.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, for sure. Like, Miz and Morrison, like, Sheamus only had his good match because it was against Miz and Morrison,
yeah,
right? Like, so I can't pick Sheamus without Miz and Morrison existing.
that
So,
exactly.
like,
But
it takes two to tango to dance, right? In this
oh,
case, I guess it
exactly.
was menage a trois, but
That's a completely fair standpoint. So now we move on to our predictions. Whether you want to predict as to next week's Raw, want to predict as to our next set of shows. I mean, in this case, this show is only for Raw. Our next show, which will be Thursday, will be covering 3 shows. If you want to make any kind of predictions related to those next 3 shows, Raw next week, anything like that. Um, I know we gave our bold predictions back on Sunday going forward for the storylines, and I had made my comment about the storyline, the Kenny and Don Callis storylines. But aside from a bold prediction, I believe we get Kyle O'Reilly, Finn Balor versus Danny Burch and Oni Larkin this week on NXT, right?
I'm pretty sure.
I believe we get that. I honestly think that's going to be an absolute freaking killer of a match.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not entirely sure what to expect from Impact tonight. I'm never quite sure, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you know if all the teams for the Women's Dusty Cup have been announced?
Yes, they have been.
They are like, and they know who they are, sort of thing. It's not like what MSK's name when it was just blacked out.
I believe it's been announced. I am trying to pull up the bracket as we speak, but you see, not seeming to find the women's. Oh! I think I found it. Yeah. So we've already seen from this past week.
Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter defeating Tony Storm and Mercedes Martinez. I got you there. Don't worry.
Yeah. We've got Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell going against Gigi Dolan and Cora Jade, or Priscilla Kelly and Elena Black. Previously, Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon against Marina Schaefer and Zoe Stark, which was the other signee, the other
Yeah.
female signee, which I'm blanking absolutely on the name.
I couldn't help you, unfortunately.
And then finally we have Aaliyah and Jesse Kamea, Kamea,
Kamea.
Kamea, against Dakota Kai and that it's Raquel Gonzalez, I believe, right?
I call her Raquel Gonzalez, bro.
Raquel. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so we obviously know your predictions for the overall of that
No,
tournament.
yeah, for sure. I was actually, if the bracket wasn't complete, I was gonna say Taya was gonna be on one of those teams, but seeing as it's complete, I can't say that. Um,
I
then
honestly think she's gonna be in the women's eliminator.
yeah, I think that's where I was going. Like, I was debating on if she would go to WWE or AEW, seeing as she didn't come on with Morrison like in any way this week. I think that's where WWE would go with it. I think she will debut the Eliminator World Cup, I think they are calling it.
World tournament, yeah.
Yeah, the World Cup. Yeah, why did I say cup? Probably because we were talking about the Dusty Cup, but
You did this on one of the previous podcasts too, which is making me laugh.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I mean, the men's goes into, I believe, the quarterfinals. This week, the men's Dusty Tag Team Classic. Um, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure it's gonna end up being MSK against. It's either gonna be the Undisputed
Yes.
Era or Grizzled Young Vets, in my
Okay.
opinion.
What? Okay. So we have it is in the second round. It's Undisputed Era versus Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher. And they apparently have already beaten Tony Nese and Aria Davari.
Okay, so Desmond Troy and Ashanti Adonis were taken out apparently, according to my bracket then. Because yes, they did beat them. They beat them on, I think it was 205 Live. They had a match on 205 Live and they beat them.
Okay, so that's why Killian Dane and Drake Maverick have moved on, and
As well as
Phantasma and
yeah.
Okay, that's where I was wondering where those matches happen. But yeah, so it's Undisputed Era versus Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher.
Killian
Okay,
Dane definitely ain't freaking 205.
no, Kushida and Leon Ruff versus Grizzled Young Vets. And then it's MSK versus Drake Maverick and Killian Dane, and Lucha House Party versus
Legado del Fantasma.
Thank you. I didn't want to butcher that. Which
Oh, I
is
probably just did, so.
DJ Zima Ion from Impact Wrestling.
No shit.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
I fell out around that time from Impact. I'm not entirely sure who he is, but I know the name and I know who he was.
Yeah.
Um,
He ended up working with Rob Terry for a little bit as and
Frickin'
called him
Rob Terry.
called him Robbie T. So we had Robbie E and Robbie T running around on Impact for a while.
So, okay, so I have a few quick notes to end off here. I know we just went through our predictions, but
For sure.
I'm gonna flip back to news here real quick. So what I'm reading here, this was posted only a handful of minutes ago. And take this as you may, because they even say it that it not everything in here is 100% verified. Apparently, WWE has informed the roster via its talent relation that the company will not be providing COVID-19 vaccinations for talent. As they are independent contractors, they will have to get vaccinated on their own. Um, Apparently, there are some senior members of staff who actively speak out against COVID and its existence altogether. The Raw six woman tag match was restarted because Shayna was legitimately counted out, and Dana Brooke is 100% okay after the bump she
Okay.
took.
Well, that's good.
Um, but that's that. I just figured I just saw it as we were looking at the bracket here, so figured I'd get that out there real quick there.
Okay, I want to read this because it's so funny. Iron Sheik tweeted 2 hours ago. If you're reading this and your name is Hulk, you can go fuck yourself, you day old donut jabroni.
His Twitter is so worth the follow for those of you who do not mind some potentially vulgar tweets sometimes.
I was scrolling through Twitter to see if there was any news like you just saw there, and I saw that and I was like, okay, I have to mention that.
But you got anything else to talk about here, my dude?
No, I think we're good. We covered it all pretty well. I gotta get ready for work here anyways, so
So yeah, thank you everybody for watching. And just a reminder before we head off here, we are live on Twitch multiple times a week. Check out our Twitch page to find out when, as well as follow us on Twitch, get notifications when we go live. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll let you know when we're going live. And if you want to support us, you can check out our Buy Me a Coffee and Redbubble pages, as well as all the other links within our link tree. And you can listen to us. You can check out our VODs on our YouTube, or we are on most major podcasting platforms such as Google Podcasts and Spotify. So check us out. And other than that, we will be seeing everybody on Thursday for the recap of Impact, NXT, and Dynamite. Check out our Twitter for timing specifically, but it should be 1 o'clock.
yeah.
But other than that, thank you everybody for listening in here, tuning in, and take care.